Let's see, how about John?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we will begin, as always, by looking at our previous meeting's minutes. So the minutes of the July 27th meeting. A motion to approve those?
I move that we approve the July 27th meetings.
Motion by Neil.
Second. Oops,
Second by,
sorry.
I choose John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. We meet on the following dates. The regular meetings next Monday, August 10th, and then the following meeting will be August 24th. Work session is always at 5, meeting at 6. We're going to have a public hearing on the ATC, which is primarily the Alternative Treatment Center, as it's known, which is primarily what we're here to talk about tonight, on August 17th at 6:00 p.m., and everybody's invited to that, of course. And we have a tentative work session scheduled for August 31st if we need it. Meetings are all held here. Weather observations for the month of June are available in the town hall, of course. Citizens wishing to be listed on the agenda for this board should notify the town hall before noon on the Friday before the meeting. And as we do every year, we announce that Plymouth State University's move-in day will be Saturday, August 29th and Sunday, August 30th, during which High Street between Main and Langdon will be closed to easterly bound traffic. We have, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Just a comment that came up in another meeting suggesting how to best communicate to the general public.
I'm sorry, sir. What?
Just to continue to communicate that. Oh, Frank Goodrell, Plymouth State University.
Yep. Okay, Frank. Yep.
Conversation about, now that we announced it here, but even work harder to educate the community about that day so that the less traffic gets caught in, the less people get backed up. For example, churches, newspapers, should we just go ahead and do that? Is there anything that the select board would do to educate the community as well, or should we work to notify the churches and the papers?
I don't know historically what we've done. You changed the traffic flow around there a couple of years ago, and I thought that that was fairly successful, but is it a...
It's been exceptional the last few years, but we've done move-in on Labor Day. We haven't done on a Sunday with church in about 4 years.
Oh,
this is the first time. The calendar goes 2 years before Labor Day, 5 years of Labor Day. So the last few years, when we moved in on a Monday, there's no school, there's no churches.
So this is Sunday, the day before Labor Day. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Okay. And
it's one of those things that keep people aware. The best we police and everybody will do their best, but we just thought the more people know about it.
You're not suggesting that people not go to church?
No. Well, some people might go on Saturday instead of Sunday. People know or people just coming through, or at least so they know when they're going to church.
Yeah.
They may start early. That it's going to be a little bit more hectic.
So anyway, I guess the point is, and Frank wants me to drill this in a little bit, there's going to be traffic on August 29th and 30th, and that's Saturday and Sunday, and probably, I imagine Holderness Road and up through the Rotary and up High Street is probably the worst, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we will say it again and again.
Thank you.
Yes.
So we're having a discussion on the matter, and I have two chiefs here. Is there anything that we could help to do different on our end?
No, I think the university does a great job notifying everybody if they can just continue doing what they do, and the traffic pattern that we have set up just works.
I thought the last 2 years went
Yeah, it went very well.
really well.
I want to say it was last year or the year before I even had a resident ask me when the college kids were moving in. They were already in. So.
Right. Because if there's any mapping that you want us to do on TV or something like that, I don't know what else we can add to how it's flowed the last 2 years.
I think if we maybe a few announcements and then run it on the TV that day, it's so people can see it. Maybe even post it down in the town hall downstairs.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chief.
Yeah, thanks. The next thing on our agenda is just to point out that we've received correspondence from an attorney, Carrie Ann Roman of Drummond Woodsum, on behalf of the ATC, the Alternative Treatment Center, I should say, since not everybody's accustomed to the terminology probably, and just reacting to our prior meeting and clarifying some points that they wish to clarify about the law, and that's available for anybody who would like to see it, of course. And then we really called this meeting to talk about the ATC. There are representatives of the ATC here, and
They're not actually on the agenda, Mr. Chair.
yeah,
It's for an update.
All right.
It said update. What else is it?
well, I think,
I'll give you an update and
all right, okay,
questions that the board has.
all right,
Try
fine,
to
I
answer them,
understand,
And
okay.
then if not, we do have representatives here tonight that could definitely answer the technical questions. And the update being that we have, met with the gentleman in the room more than several times, here at the town hall, outside of the town hall, by phone, with the planner, myself, Kathy,
Hello,
Lowe,
Kevin.
and code enforcement Brian Murphy. We've received a lot more information on how this would work, how ATCs actually function. We reached out to the DHHS like we said we would. They did respond back to the code enforcement today, and also to the ATC that there will be 5 people from the ATC here at your 17th. The DHHS, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I've got a public hearing on the 17th, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, on the 20th at the planning board's meeting, you just got word that there will also be somebody there.
One representative.
So at least one representative from the DHHS planning board, site plan review. And if you have any specific questions,
does anybody have any questions of either Paul or, I guess, the folks from the ATC?
I'm wondering if we should, if this is the time to maybe get a brief synopsis of what, in lay terms, what this means for the community. Having the center here in the community. This is the time to do that, or maybe at a public hearing.
Excuse me, I'm just having a hard time hearing you guys. I don't know if you could speak louder into the microphone or no, or is this as loud as you guys speak?
The microphones don't project into the
What's
room.
her name?
Say it again.
these microphones are up to the-
What's her name?
Okay.
Yeah, you need,
We'll try to talk.
yeah.
But you're going to have a couple of public hearings. It can be addressed.
Yeah.
Again, if you have any specific questions,
Here it comes. What's that?
The roof
Storm.
is creaking.
Oh. Has anybody got any specific questions about this? that they
What's
wanna
her
ask
name?
you? Ann. Why did you want to know?
I don't know.
To identify themselves when they speak.
No, I have a question.
No, what's your name?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Ann Stark, and I work for Katie, Communities for Alcohol and Drug.
Okay.
and I can circle questions for public comment.
Pardon me?
Public comment.
Oh, all right. Well, so are you saying, Paul,
This is the board's opportunity to hear any more of an update.
well, we've heard from you to some extent about what's happened in the last several days with this. I gather that, we know that there's a site plan review application filed and scheduled for a hearing on the 20th. We know that you've communicated with the ATC folks and that they've been in and out of the office a few times. We know that Health and Human Services, which according to them, say they want to work in partnership with Plymouth to arrange a public input, just sent a letter apparently in an effort to do that. And I hear they're going to appear at the public hearing, so.
And the other reason I recall this was if you were approached by anybody on the street, being a governing body of the town, and had a question by somebody on the street that you couldn't answer yourself, I'll read the time to get that answer. And
Well, I'd
I'll
actually-
also mention that we also reached out to PSU to attend these meetings in case somebody had a question for the university, or if the university themselves had a question,
Do they?
which we would handle in the public comments.
Oh, all right.
So if you want to move right into public comments.
I'm going to move right into public comments, then you're kind of confusing me. Well, you do a great job. So let's do public comments. I would like really to have these folks come, maybe even sit here, and tell us a little bit about this, and maybe we'll have a little conversation about it. So will you do that? Just introduce yourselves. You can stand or sit, but I just like to hear you tell us what this is about and how it's going to work, if it's, presuming it's approved. Am I speaking loudly enough, Ann?
Where would we sit?
Right in blue chairs.
Sure.
Sit in my chair.
My name's Jason Sidman, the CEO of Sanctuary ATC. This is,
Josh Weaver, CFO, Sanctuary ATC.
and basically we selected the town of Plymouth to bring a medicinal cannabis dispensary to. And we, as you know, we submitted our site plan for the 20th, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have or.
Well, I guess I'll ask you a few. How much product do you anticipate selling from there? I was kind of curious about that.
We anticipate that from 1 to 2% of the population over years will actually use the medicine. So how much product that equates to is roughly, it really depends on, you know, specifically to the zone, would be approximately 1,000 to 2,000 patients.
A year?
Well, that is going to ramp up over time, so certainly not, I mean, the first year, maybe 200 people.
Yeah. But when you say 1,000 patients, are you talking about 1,000 patients in a year or at a time? You'd have 1,000 patients.
So,
I think our Zone 4 that we're representing has about 150,000 people in it, and we forecast about 0.2% of the population to start out to be patients, clients at the ATC. So that's going to be roughly, I think, about 300 to start, and as more scripts get written, that's going to go higher. But as you know, you need a 3-month relationship with the physician in order to get a script, so that's going to take time to go to accelerate.
And then, and you're talking about just the people from the 3 counties?
Yes.
Do you anticipate drawing from the south?
not necessarily can it happen. It could, but the patient actually will have to designate an ATC when they submit to the state.
And if they designate it, are they prohibited from going to another one?
Absolutely. So if they designate an ATC in Zone 2, for example, they would not be able to come up to this zone to purchase their medicine. If they wanted to make a change, they could in writing to the state, and the state would.
And do we know where, I don't really know where the other 3 are, but obviously south. Do you know where they're going to be located or where they're
I'm
planning?
not sure 100% if that's public information yet. I don't know the exact specifics.
But isn't there a time frame by which you're supposed to get this
Absolutely.
things in?
August 27th, I believe, is when the second part of the application is due.
So the second part of the application would be the one in which people designate the spot they're gonna go? Is that, so there are 3 others that may or may not have filed those?
That's right.
But if you suppose maybe one's in Concord, for example, there would be quite a few people that would be closer to Plymouth than Concord, and maybe wouldn't want to drive down to Concord. I just wonder how much of that. And if I were you, this would seem like sort of an attractive spot, because I'd be thinking I'd want to be more in the population center, or maybe as close as I could.
I mean, it's certainly within the population density pocket of Zone 4, which is our zone, so.
Was that the decision, or why you based the decision? Because we are in like that population density?
Exactly.
Okay.
Precisely.
Yeah, because geographically, you figured like, somewhere like Littleton or something like that would be like more central.
It may look like it on a map, but it certainly isn't by
density.
population.
Right.
As a matter of fact, if we were to locate in Littleton, we would serve, well, for here, for example, we can serve greater than 17% of the density within Zone 4.
We're looking at 60 and 90-minute drive times when we
That's
come up
right.
with those
Say that again, I
analytics.
didn't understand.
So in a 90-minute drive time within
Oh, I
Zone
didn't hear
4,
that.
we can serve 17% greater population by locating in Plymouth rather than Littleton.
And that's Grafton, Carroll, and Cullis County, our zones.
Paul?
Sorry, Jason, one of the questions that some members of the public did have regarding doctors, if your doctor is in a different zone, which zone do you go to? Determined by the doctor, or we've...
No, it's actually determined by your designation. So you could actually be a resident of Salem, New Hampshire, and a physician could write a prescription that would be submitted to the state, and they could designate whichever zone they chose.
The patient could.
The patient, that's right, and then it's registered with the state.
So the patient does decide.
That's right.
So you don't have to live in Zone 4. You live outside of Zone 4.
That's correct.
And choose Zone 4.
And the initial decision is for that zone, and you had indicated it is possible for them to change that if they so choose.
They can change in writing is, I believe, the process, but the state is looking at making it so that they can only have X amount of changes.
Sure.
So that you can't change every other week or anything like that.
Mr. Chair, a couple of other questions that Jason was able to explain to the planner today. I'm going to have him do it again because he'll do a much better job. About doctors, who you go to, and also, should you be coming in from out of state, what would happen?
Those were great questions. So basically the process is first off, you have to be a New Hampshire resident. So there's no reciprocity with, say you had a prescription and an ID card from another qualifying state, such as California, and you're going to school here. So at that point, you would not be allowed to purchase any medicine from any ATC unless you're a resident and you had a prescription from a doctor with whom you had a greater than a 3-month relationship with, and the state approved it. So there's a lot of checks and balances here.
I thought there was I read most of that statute. I thought there was something in there about, being somebody who is a qualified non-resident or something like that. There's some,
Not that I'm aware of.
I think you might be referring to if they're allowed to, so if you had a medical ID card in Massachusetts, for example, and you're up here vacationing, you're allowed to take your medicine with you. Maybe that's what you're referring to, but you
you
could
just
never,
bring it here.
even if you ran out in an emergency situation, you could not buy it at an ATC in the state.
yeah.
So you're saying that if any student from anywhere in the world wants to claim residency here, they can automatically qualify?
Absolutely not. No, because they have to have a qualifying condition, and then the doctor or physician has to write the prescription to the state, and then the state would issue an ID card depending on if it met their qualifications. So you really have, and the qualifications are, I mean, you have to have cancer, or there's some others, of course, but it's not, there is a process.
Yeah, I don't think you'd find people moving here to get marijuana.
I was just thinking about how easy it is to become a resident here.
You need a 3-month relationship with the physician as well, so you can't really just show up and sign up that quickly either.
And it's a whole education process, really, because if you use Maine as an example, they had maybe 1 or 2 doctors that would write a prescription for the first maybe, I'm not sure what the time frame was, but it was quite some time before more doctors came on board and actually started to write prescriptions.
I saw a graph somewhere that resulted from a poll of doctors, I think, that said that very few of them would want to prescribe it, basically, I think is what the bottom line was. Is that...
And that was the part B that we had asked today, which doctors, could it be any doctor?
Well, it would fall, from our understanding, our doctor's not here, so I don't want to speak for him, but it would be, the pharmaceutical has a certain designation, so the doctor would have to write if, they would only have the ability to write if it fell under their designation, so to speak. So from what I understand, there's 5 different levels, and level 5, I think, is the highest, where only certain doctors can write scripts, and I don't know where this falls in under that, but if Dr. Sarek was here, he would be able to answer that.
It's kind of getting back to the transport thing again, but, yeah, I know it's not your call, but should legislation, move forward and, say there's like a person up in Berlin that has to drive like an hour and 3/4 or something like that to get his prescription filled, would, as far as like New Hampshire itself, are there other medical marijuana states that have like a higher ATC per capita, or, because one in this whole geographic area seems kind of small? And
I couldn't agree with you more. I think over time that may loosen up and there may be the ability to have more dispensaries. But some states follow a caregiver model. It really depends. So for this state, for example, I believe it's 60 miles. If there is a caregiver that would be able to pick up the medicine for the patient if it's outside of 60 miles.
Okay. Gotcha.
It has to be outside of 60 miles?
Yeah, don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure
Some
limit.
distance.
That's right.
And Mr. Chair, when we have the public hearings, we will have other experts in the room.
Yes.
I told them we wouldn't turn this into a public hearing.
But you're sitting right there, though.
Introduce ourselves.
It's for the board to have these questions.
So I have some involvement with a bank, and I was talking to the bank about this, and one of the people there told me you can't put money in a bank, you can't have accounts. How does that all work?
Well, I just actually got back on the way up here speaking with the bank. It's not in the state, but they will be willing to work with us. It's just going to be a little bit tricky transporting the money back and forth, but we will have a relationship with the bank, so it's not going to be...
And is it all cash?
Yes, there's no credit cards right now. We're not allowed to take those, and no debit cards either. It's just going to be strictly cash at the beginning until some of these banking laws loosen up a little bit.
Checks. Strictly cash.
Yeah, put 'em in.
Strictly cash now, yeah.
It is a public,
Huh?
public can comment, it's a public.
I have
Well,
a question.
let John.
What about security at these centers? If you guys are gonna have the cash and stuff like that, what kind of arrangements are they?
That's a great question. The security is extremely intense, so I can't really get into the specifics without having our security analyst here, but basically any medicine and any cash gets stored in composite safes. And there's different levels of security throughout the facility, and there's different levels when it goes to the cultivation site, which is not located in this municipality. So it's very intense, and I wish if they were here, they could certainly get more in depth with it.
And the intense part, they will be meeting with both Chief LeFave and Tamperino if needed, Steve. But I know that they'll definitely be meeting with Chief LaFave.
So you, yeah,
Well, I was just gonna mention, there'll obviously be cameras everywhere, and the state police and the local police will have real-time access to that.
But they weren't just gonna get into the logistics at any of these meetings. They'll just go through the chief.
do we have any members of the public, like Mr. Miller, for example, who would like to say something?
Frank Miller. My curiosity is how the state has labeled this as for planning and land use regulation type. Is this an extension of a medical business, or is this a standalone commercial business? So for the planning board meeting, the citizens kind of need to get an idea if we're talking about a medical facility or a commercial facility, zoning and land use wise.
Without getting into answering the questions that the attorney would probably answer, I would say it's a retail facility, and that's what the application we submitted was for.
Can you ship it?
No.
So it's got to be picked up either by the patient or one of these couriers? That's it?
Caregivers.
Caregivers?
You mentioned if somebody does forget to come into, when they come into the state, if they did forget their cannabis, could a doctor ship it? Mail it?
I can't speak on other states' regulations. I would say that would not be.
I don't think they're gonna allow
I don't think that
through
could
the
work.
federal, through the mail. No,
So I just wondering if it was going to turn up in mailboxes.
I don't think that could.
So if you come without it, you're out of luck.
Go back and get it.
Well, I've told a lot of people this. What kind of concerns me about this is that it seems like some of the biggest corporations in the world, all the pharmaceutical companies, can't keep their, drugs in the system the way they're supposed to be, and you can buy most of them on the street pretty easily, and I just can't imagine there's going to be some leakage out of this too. I guess the kids can get pot anytime they want it anyway, so maybe it doesn't really make any difference, but that's what concerns me about it, is it's sort of a foot in the door, and some of it will get out of the system, either the so-called caregivers or the patients themselves, or I think can't you give them, like, is it 6 ounces a month or something like that?
The maximum amount is 2 ounces per 10 days.
So 6 ounces a month. I mean, when I was a kid, that was a lot.
But say you're making Rick Simpson oil, for example.
Pardon me?
Say you're making Rick Simpson oil, for example. That wouldn't even be.
I didn't hear that.
That's the oil, Mike?
The oil. It's called Rick Simpson oil. It's just an example of. So it's not only flour. It's also cannabis-infused products. So there's a lot of extraction that takes place. A lot of people actually won't be buying flour. They'll be buying infused products. And in order to reach a therapeutic value dosage, it takes a lot of what looks like flour to make a tiny, tiny bit of extraction. So it's
like ounce equivalent.
That's
not
right.
necessarily
It's based off of what goes into the extractor.
Yeah.
So it's not based off of what comes out of it.
So you've got to have some kind of equalization math done to say
of course.
10 drops of this equals an ounce of that, or whatever it is. I see. Yeah.
As far as compliance goes, worrying about the product on the street, we have seed to sale inventory that tracks everything, and we have not only our bank, which is really meticulous about keeping records, we have the DHS and New Hampshire Charitable Trust Division that we report to as well. So we have basically 3 bodies looking over the whole process of tracking everything to a T. So we're going to be really on top of compliance.
Sounds very expensive.
It is.
It is.
I want to ask, does it have THC in it?
Some strains will be high in CBD, which is completely different. Again, I wish our doctor was here because we could go through all the strains with you and answer all the questions on the different cannabinoids. And
something Mike had just mentioned, it sounds expensive. And this is a retail facility, as you just stated, for profit.
It's a non-profit, or not for profit. That's how it's designated in this state. Not every state adopts that. But what's really good about that is that the Charitable Trust Division has a lot of oversight on this, so it's a good model.
In New Hampshire, taxes will be paid.
It's, federally, it's not recognized as a nonprofit, of course, so on the federal level, taxes will absolutely be paid.
What about town taxes?
Well, for retail, I mean, what would you normally pay for?
Well,
I don't understand
what Paul is getting at is that,
You're not going to own the building,
No.
so the board would, they would still pay taxes.
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
I think that's where we're going with that.
That was my
Yeah,
question,
that's-
really.
Sometimes just cut to the chase.
It's commercial property.
Taxes won't change as far as that property.
I think there's well, you know, what we run into, and especially in a town like this where we're sort of a hub for the areas, that we have a lot of nonprofits, and there's some of the nonprofits are charitable and don't pay taxes, so the churches, you know, some of the other, the hospital, for example. And so that's always a concern of ours, but I think there's actually an amendment to that statute that says that regardless of your,
Real estate tax.
you have to pay real estate, or the equivalent.
And the two amendments where taxes would be paid, and there will be no homegrown plants by the patient. Whereas in some
Oh, those
states,
are right.
you can grow like 3 plants, so correct me if I'm wrong, but not in New Hampshire.
In this instance, real estate is not going to be owned by the center.
Anybody else?
I just thought it was kind of interesting, you refer to your product as flour, not F-L-O-U-R, I take it, so,
No.
anyway.
Anybody else?
That's a good clarification, because we can call that tomorrow.
Smoking flower. Well, I guess if that's it, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming up.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for talking to us.
We have a non-public for union negotiations.
Okay, do we have a motion to go into non-public?
So,
For,
91A,
yeah, 91A, thank you.
we'll see.
Motion by Bill, second by
Second.
Armand. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're in non-public.